Okay, welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. We are continuing our college football conference previews today. If you haven't listened or watched our ACC preview, go back and check it out. We break down each of the teams and their players, coaches, all of that, as well as give our picks, division winners, conference winners, and over-under win totals. We got it all covered for you. But today, Tyson, we are moving to the West Coast, a Pac-12 conference preview, and quite a lot of noise in the offseason for this conference.
Yeah, at the top. Real quiet, from the middle on down. Conference of Champions, though, they say.
I think it's for the Olympic sports.
Yeah, but
beach volleyball, water polo.
That's it's an interesting look at it there. I like that, actually. That's an optimistic way to start the podcast, which is typically not the way we like to get into these things. And I got to be honest, Brad, it sounds like you're optimistic on a couple of these Pac-12 schools that I'm just not in love with.
I think we're going to have a little differing opinions here, especially when we get into money-making time and talk about some win totals and potential long shots that we can get into. But, yeah, we were doing our pre-show little chat, and a couple of these teams, we had some differing thoughts on. So I'm excited to kind of hear your reasoning, and then we'll get into mine as we go through this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And by the way, just for everybody out there, I'm not going to get deep into every quarterback in the conference this time.
You were in love with the ACC quarterbacks.
I do.
I'm going through these quarterbacks. A lot of transfers, a lot of hand-me-downs,
a lot of trash cans.
And the ACC was not like that.
Well, we'll find out. All of a sudden there's going to be top 3 Heisman contenders. It's going to be Oregon State, Wazoo, and Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start right now. We're going to get into the North Division right now. Obviously on this side, kind of the Kings, especially under Mario Cristobal, who's now at Miami, has been Oregon. The rest of this division has been pretty subpar. When you look at Cal, Stanford, and Washington State over the past couple of years since Mike Leach left, those have really been the bottom feeders. Washington and Oregon State have had some pretty good recent success, but nothing that is going to challenge Oregon. I think for both of us here, it's still Oregon or bust even without Cristobal.
I can't not smile when you bring up Washington football. I'm sitting here in Missoula, Montana right now getting butterflies thinking back a year ago. And to hear recent success is just funny, mashed up with that image running through my head. But, yeah, I think this is the same thing that it's been, right? This is Oregon's division to lose. Oregon has the most talent. Oregon has the exciting transfer quarterback that apparently not a lot of people watch play at Auburn.
There
seems to be a lot of Bo Nix love going around, which we'll get into.
Absolutely. So let's start off right here. We're going to start with Cal in the bottom feeders. We think it's both California, Stanford, Washington State, but we'll start here with Cal, the Brainiac school. Now, in 2021, they went 5-7, 4-5 in conference, which is actually pretty respectable for a Cal team who's been, not very good, to put it lightly. Justin Wilcox back for the 6th season. Jack Plummer transferred in from Purdue. He's going to take over the quarterback spot here. Conference future at plus 5,500, and their win total set at 5.5 over, plus 100 in the under, juice to minus 120. We will get into those more substantially in money-making time. But Tyson, let's get into Cal. What are you seeing from them this year? What do you expect?
One thing that I think is interesting about Cal is just last year in conference play, right, they allowed 20 points a game on defense. It's not a very high number, Brad, and that's not a number that when I dove into this that I was expecting to find from a 5-7 team. I don't really like Justin Wilcox, but I think as far as Cal goes, he's fine, right? But this team, I think the story of Cal this year is it's a ton of new faces all over the place. And as we said last time, and as we'll say later this episode, I'm sure that in college football, that can be a good or a bad thing. They might come in and maybe they're just better than the guys were a year ago, or maybe they were backups for a reason, right? And if that's the case, Cal's in trouble. I think a 5-7 team last year, I think fighting for a bowl game is a very reasonable expectation from Cal.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
I think they're going to be bad, but I wouldn't be ridiculously surprised if they have, 4 wins with 3-4 weeks left in the season, and we're like, oh, Cal might make a bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at the North overall, and that's where the majority comes from, and they're going to have to play the South and some of the better teams in there. But can they beat a banged up or an underperforming Stanford team over the past few years. A Washington team, who has some new faces. Washington State, we're not really sure about, and Oregon State, maybe a little overachievement last year. Can they maintain that? So that's not a bad thought. Now, if you listen to our ACC preview, I like to look at returning output. I think that's very, especially in college football, when you kind of look at, what's coming back in terms of, a forecast. They're 127th in the nation in returning output. 20% of their yards are returning from last year. 51 offensive line starts. That's 100th in the country.
That's their top 4 wideouts.
And 44.4% of their tackles are returning last year. This is going to be a bad team. Three offensive starters, 5 defensive starters are coming back. I don't see it with Cal. I think they're going to be last in this North Division.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. It'll be on Jack Plummer. I almost said Jake. That'd be nice for Cal, I think, if they had him. But new quarterback, new receivers, offensive line gets a bit of a boost, right? You get transfer in from Washington, you get a guy back from injury, stuff like that. But it's a Pac-12 North. Anything can happen.
Now, Stanford, we know, it's coached by David Shaw. This is his 12th season there, and it's actually a really good record, 93-45 since he's been there, which is unbelievable. I mean, the dude's a great coach. Tanner McKee returns. He threw for 2,300 yards last year, 15 TDs, 7 interceptions. Nothing great on those numbers, but they have started to spread it out a little bit. They used to want to run the rock a lot, but a very disappointing 3-9 record in 2021 and a 2-7 record in conference. Win total at 4.5, plus 120 on the over, juiced minus 140 on the under, and a long shot at 6,500 to win the conference. Now, Tyson, this is a team we're going to differ on a little bit, so let me hear your side of the story.
What do you say David Shaw's record is?
93-45.
You know what they are in the last 3 years?
Not great.
11-19. It's not a good football team. They're playing USC, UCLA on the road, Utah on the road, BYU, Notre Dame. Right, I think we can count those off. You can tick those one by one. Those I think are going to be losses. And the offense actually has a bit of firepower. We were talking before the episode. The problem is the defense is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like allowed 235 yards a game on the ground last year, just rushing. Right, and Brad, they're switching to a 4-man front. They're switching schemes. They started it a little bit, but now they have one recruiting class of guys set to play a 4-down, on defense, a 4-3 or whatever they want to run. I like David Shaw too, but everybody has their day in college football, and they won 8 games in a row at Stanford for like 8 years. That's pretty good. Eventually, this thing's got to come crumbling down. I think we saw the beginning of it 2 years ago, and it's just steadily gotten worse. I don't think Stanford's going to be a very good football team.
Now, you named off the schedule a little bit. They have the 7th toughest schedule according to Phil Steele this year, which, based on the gauntlet you listed, it's a no-brainer why it'd be ranked so tough. I mean, they're gonna play a tough schedule this year. Here's why I'm bullish on them, though. 10 offensive starters are returning, 7 defensive starters, and yeah, they're switching schemes. But man, you just named off how shitty they were last year. They have to do something to change this up. They're 30th in the country in output that's returning back. 78% of their yards are returning on offense. I think this is going to be a much better offensive team last year. They were horrible in the red zone last year. They also have 104 offensive line starts coming back to give time. All 5 starters. And yeah, that defense was bad last year, but they're not losing a ton. Like I mentioned, 65.4% of their tackles are back. I think this is a team, they've had a few rough years. This is a team, and we'll get into it later in money-making time, but I may be eyeing that win total over, and this North Division's bad. I would not be shocked if this team strings something together with all these returning players, and they actually have a really good season.
What is a really good season, though? You keep saying
second in the division.
Second in the division.
I'm not predicting that, but I wouldn't be shocked about it.
That's best case. Best case. Right, okay. I guess that's not that outrageous. I just need to get on you for something. I mean, I'm running through these teams in my head. We got Oregon State, Washington. Best case, maybe they are better than them.
Let's get to Wazoo. 7-6 last year, 6-3 in conference. I think they surprised a lot of people. This is now Jake Dickert's second season. He took over for Nick Rolovich after he got fired for this whole vaccination thing, which we won't get into. His new offensive coordinator coming from Incarnate Word brought the quarterback Cameron Ward from the FCS level. I'm sure you're very familiar with him being the FCS guy you are. That's something interesting. Plus 4,000 to win the conference. Win total at 5.5. Plus 125 if you like the over. Juiced under minus 145. Wazoo, let's get into it, Tyson.
Cam Ward had 4,700 passing yards last year, basically, and 47 touchdowns. That's a good football player. I don't care what level you play at. That's a good football player, right? Stribling's back on the outside. The offensive line, man, they allowed 31 sacks a year ago, and they lost 3 starters. But once Dickert took over, I think everybody in the country, when you watch Washington State, the defense got way better. Way better. And I think the changes on the staff are going to be really interesting because it's going to be one of those things we'll know pretty quick. Right. Whether this thing's going to work. We always do. When Vernon Adams came up from Eastern Washington, played really well for Oregon, we were like, oh, this is going to work. And occasionally you get transfer quarterbacks from these schools that come up and it's like, oh, he's third on the depth chart. I think Cameron Ward's a good player. I think he's clearly going to win the job, and I think he'll probably surprise a decent amount of people this year. But I think it's going to be the same old Washington State team, new coach, new faces everywhere, high-powered offense or offense that can put points up occasionally. And the defense is probably going to let you down. I mean, the jump they took from 2020 to 2021 on defense, it was like 1.5 yards a play, like 7-8 points a game, something. It seems a little bit unrealistic. But again, the North is bad.
125th out of 132 schools in returning output overall. Tyson, 14.8% of their offensive yards are returning. That's 129th in the country. There's only 3 worse coming in to this season. It's insane. They only have a 31 offensive line starts. This team's going to be bad. And yeah, Cameron Ward may be awesome. Is he going to be able to throw to anybody? Is he going to be able to block for him?
He might be able to beat Stanford.
I don't know. That's the question. He may be able to throw all over him, but Jesus, man. I mean, this is crazy. 125th returning output. I mean, new faces, 4 returning starters. What they do, apparently nothing. They only count for 14% of their offensive yards, and 6 returning defensive starters on a defense that was better but not great. Washington State, I think, is a team I'm going to be looking to fade a lot this year. I know they went to a bowl game, 7-6. Post Leach era, it's been semi-successful, but I don't know. I think this is a year where, like, holy shit, we're missing a lot of this talent that's been in this program for a while.
Has there been a lot of talent at Washington State? Like, realistically? Like, I feel like we do this where we pretend. And I don't know. Maybe it was just
Leach.
But there was something going on with Washington State where it was like, what was it, Jake Luton? Was he the Washington State quarterback?
He was Oregon State.
Yeah.
He was Oregon State.
But whatever. They have Sean Mannion or whoever.
They had a Gardner Minshew
quarterback. They're all the same.
Yeah.
Right? They're all the same player. And we're like, oh, that guy's pretty good. But they're not. And Washington State's not going to be good.
Okay, so this is like the bottom feeders we think. Now, I think the mid-tier, below Oregon, can compete a little bit. Let's get into Washington. 2021 was a very tumultuous year. They had to fire Jimmy Lake, their head coach. Midway through the season, they finished 4-8, 3-6 in conference. Now Kalen DeBoer takes over as head coach. He was at Fresno State. I think this is a great hire for them first and foremost. And the quarterback Michael Penix Jr. transferred in from Indiana. He was the quarterback under DeBoer at Indiana in 2019, I believe. So, some familiarity there. Plus 1,700 if you like them to win the conference. Win total at 7.5. Juiced over at minus 125 and under as plus 105. So, interesting number there, especially coming off a 4-8 record last year. Washington, what do you see with them, Tyson, besides your Grizz beating their ass last year?
I think, that's all I can see. But I guess Jackson Kirkland coming back for the offensive line is probably where I'd want to start because I think last year, the story with Washington was like, look at the hogs they have up front. Like, this is crazy. This is an NFL offensive line they have. And they underperformed, like, way below expectation, right? So getting Kirkland back is going to be huge. Hopefully he can bolster. They lose guys there too. So hopefully his presence, right, having an NFL player on the offensive line is never a bad thing. The defense was actually okay last year, right? I think it was 21 points a game in Pac-12 play. They allowed like 5.5 yards of play. Pretty standard college football numbers. It's just the offense was so bad. And the team as a whole looked like they gave up, over and over and over again. I think this is going to be a really interesting team because if Michael Penix Jr. is the guy from, when we thought Indiana was going to win 11 games, if he's that guy, then Washington could compete in the North. But if he's what he's shown us he is, like in actuality, without DeBoer, he's not a very good player. And
Yeah,
I'm wondering if they rekindle that magic. What's the ceiling for Washington?
Oh, the ceiling. I mean, the ceiling is competing with Oregon. I mean, they could win this. Listen, they got 8 offensive returning starters, 75.5% of yards returning on that offensive side of the ball. That's not including the quarterback. They got a new QB in, so that's taken out of the equation.
Dylan Morris?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he can't win the job.
And like you said, I mean, the question is, can Michael Penix stay healthy? That's the biggest thing. He's had so many surgeries, so many season-ending injuries. Like you mentioned, Jackson Kirkland up front, that's an NFL guy who's going to be able to block for him at least, second team preseason All-American looks right now. If he can get the ball to his weapons, this could be a scary offense for Washington. And like you said, they underperformed last year. Can they piece it together this year and kind of put everything together? But I agree with you. I mean, this is a team that could compete. Plus 1,700 to win the conference. Interesting, especially we haven't gotten into the South yet. But can they win the North? I think they're live to win it, honestly.
If the pass defense is as good, and it was first in the Pac-12 a year ago, obviously they have some shuffling of guys to do back there. But if the pass defense can be really good again, and the offense can kind of turn it up from being, a bottom team in the Pac-12, if that's what they were on offense a year ago, there's a real shot that Washington surprises people.
Now, Oregon State, another one in this below tier, had a good season last year. 7-6, 5-4 in conference. Jonathan Smith's coming back for his 5th season. I think that's his best, overall season that he's had. Maybe there's a couple other ones, but they beat a lot of good opponents last year, and they're really formidable. Chance Nolan's, their projected QB to come back. He threw for 2,600 yards, 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 picks. But you, Tyson, you think there may be a new QB starting for Oregon State Beavers this year?
No, running back.
Oh, running back. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Chance Nolan is every other one of those guys I just named, right? He's going to get you 230 yards in the air, and that's just what you're going to have. That's what he is. As far as it being their best season in a couple of years, that was their best season since 2013 a year ago. When we were little, remember there was like Jaquiz Rogers and those guys. Right. Oregon State's fun. That's so long ago now. That's 9 years.
Why you airing out our age on the podcast, man?
That's what it blew my mind.
Felt like yesterday.
5-4 in league play, super strong offensive line. They have weapons coming back. I don't know. I think Oregon State can be really good. The interesting thing is a very inexperienced secondary. Good news is the Pac-12, not a lot of teams that can throw the ball all over the field. Bad news is when you're leading games late in the season, let's say Oregon State has 9 wins at one point this year, and they're playing in a huge game late in the year and they're winning, and they can't stop anybody from throwing the football on them. Like, granted, Oregon State's not going to be pissed off with a 9-win season. I think they'd be pumped. But this is a team I fully expect to be playing in a bowl game this year. I think, 7 wins might be the new norm.
Win total's at 5.5 right now.
Doesn't that sound funny?
Juice over -180. So really, I think it's saying, hey, they're at least going to win 6. Do you want to take the under chance at +155? That's crazy to me. They're 22nd returning output. O-line stars, they got 76. 71% of their tackles are returning from last year. I think their offense is going to be a lot better than they were last year. On the best team these guys have ever played on in college.
And
apparently Jonathan Smith saying, this is the deepest team we have I've ever had here.
He won 3 games the first 3. Like, it's not saying a ton.
Well, it kind of shows though. That he continues to grow it up or grow, kind of build up this program. All of a sudden, like you said, last year best since 2013. He's like, no, I'm telling you, this team, that's something to me.
And you keep talking about returning output, and we said it's important, but it's a really good preseason gauge for teams that improved a year ago to check in how those guys are going to be. Like, To go from 3 wins to 7 wins is a massive jump. And then to return, what did you say they were in the country? 15th?
22nd.
22nd. Like, that's huge. That's massive. These guys, like, culture, right? We talk about culture all the time. Oregon State finally gets to set one.
They're rivals. Oregon, cream of the crop in this division. Past few years, I mean, it's really been the cream of the crop in the conference. 10-4 last year, 7-2 in conference. Got smacked by Utah in the Pac-12 title game, and smacked twice last year. So they got their ass beat a little bit. The plus 300 to win the conference this year. It's the Pac-12 overall. Win totals at 8.5, juiced over at minus 130, under plus 105. Now Dan Lanning takes over since Mario Cristobal left. He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia. Should keep this defense continuing to roll. Bo Nix transferred in at QB from Auburn. So completely different looking Oregon team this year. Question is, can they maintain that physicality and the attitude that Mario Cristobal brought them?
We can sit here and talk about Byron Cardwell and Sean Dollars, Chris Hudson, Troy Franklin, Dante Thornton, all those guys, but it's Bo Nix. We can talk about Lanning too, but it's Bo Nix. That's what this season is going to boil down to from Oregon. I think Bo Nix has shown us over and over and over again, except for I think against Oregon. Remember that one ridiculous end of game sequence that he had. But he's not a winner. He doesn't win these games. Like he just really, the team is going to be fine and they're going to win the North, but they're not going to win the North because of Bo Nix. They're going to win the North because they're Oregon, because they're returning 14 starters, because they went 10-4 and they lose Kayvon Thibodeau. Well, what do? Right? Penei Sewell's little brother,
Noah Sewell.
No, yeah, he's he's going to be a first, second round pick in the NFL linebacker, right? They're just replacing studs with studs. They're the most talented team by a mile, but Bo Nix severely hamstrings this team's playoff chances, chances to win the division as a whole, chances to win a big bowl game. Like, this might be the same story as a year ago, which honestly, in a first year for a new staff with all this turnover, might not be the worst thing.
Right, and you take in a quarterback who's been there before in college football, and then while you're recruiting your own guys here. But I agree with you. I can't say anything different about that. And the only thing I can do is add to it a little bit is, Bo Nix has been very underwhelming ever since he stepped foot in college football. He had some good moments his freshman year when everybody wanted him to, freshman starter at Auburn. And the only thing he's done is decline since that point. And I don't think it's going to change at Auburn under a coach whose history is defensive coordinator and as a defensive guy. I think he needs to have an offensive person around him to realize out of him. And I don't think that'll be here at Oregon, especially on a 1 year. Maybe if he, was there for a little bit longer and it was his second or third going into a staff like this. Sure. But if Gus Malzahn couldn't get the best out of him at Auburn, what makes us think that a defensive guy is going to do it as well? So I agree. Oregon's been the cream of the crop here. I think they're the best team. I know they're the best team on paper, but that's why we play the games. And I do think the North Division is a little bit more vulnerable than it has been in the past recent.
It sucks. You don't have to say it's vulnerable. These aren't vulnerable animals. Most of them were dead, Brad. Most of these were found on the side of the road.
You're already duck hunting? Duck hunting?
I mean, I think Oregon's probably going to run away with this thing in the North. But, again, that's not saying a whole bunch. One thing, though, talking about Bo Nix, is Bo Nix dollar store Sam Ehlinger?
Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely, dude. But Ehlinger was successful.
But it's funny because they both got worse after their freshman year once they hit the big stage. Sam Ehlinger won a big game in the Sugar Bowl. Bo Nix has won a handful of big games. It's just like, we're doing this again with a worse version? Like, yeah. Is Oregon back?
Exactly. That's what it is. Okay, South Division. Let's switch to the South. We're going to talk about a lot of better teams here, but there's always the doormats, and Colorado is no exception here. I mean, this team's going to be bad, man. I mean, 4-8 last year, 3-6 in conference. Their conference future is plus 15,000. Win totals at 3.5, plus 145 if you like the over, juiced under at minus 170. I mean, come on, man. Carl Dorrell, third season as head coach. Brandon Lewis was a QB returning. He threw for 1,500 yards last year. 7 returning offensive starters, 5 defensive starters. They have the 13th toughest schedule in the nation. I think this team is going to be bad. Just flat out bad.
They started last year 4-2. Do you remember that?
I do. And it was like,
Colorado comes out 4-2. and then they go into conference play and they proceed to lose 6 of their conference games by over 15 points. Like, offensive line is horrible. I think they allowed 32 sacks or something like that a year ago. Brendan Rice and Broussard both transferred. Like you said, Brendan Lewis accounted for 1,800 total yards. We got somebody pushing him for the starting job, as according to the beat reporters.
Somebody better be. Holy smokes.
That's what I'm
Imagine
saying.
if there was like, no, it's his job.
The defense was bottom half of the conference, like bottom third of the conference, and they only have 4 starters returning. Like, Chris Wilson's the defensive coordinator, and I feel bad because his job is impossible. And they're playing TCU, Minnesota, and Air Force, which might not sound like a murderer's row.
Dude, Air Force can be good this year.
All those teams are going to donkey Colorado. They're going to get crushed over and over and over again, which stinks because I love when Colorado's good or at least decent, but this isn't going to be the year for that. 1,800 yards from a returning quarterback.
Bad.
And they're like, hey, man, you got the job.
49 offensive line starts too, so at least he'll have a lot of time. Arizona State. Now, this is interesting because Herm Edwards is the head coach there. I think he's done a great job since he's taken over. This is his 5th season, 25-18, but kind of took this team. I didn't think they were great when he took it over. They went 8-5 last year, 6-3 in conference. Had a roller coaster of a season. Big high moments, big low moments, and it's kind of been the story since he's taken over. But what was his name last year? Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
The quarterback, he transfers out to LSU. Emory Jones transfers in from Florida. I'm curious how this offense is going to look with way less talent out of the throwing the football, but way more talent on the ground, in my opinion. Emory Jones is a flat-out athlete. Not saying Jaden Daniels isn't, but I think Emory Jones is a better runner, more natural runner. If you like them to win the conference, plus 5,500, win total 5.5, over juiced minus 150. Under sitting at plus 130. Give me your thoughts on where you think the Sun Devils finish this year, how they perform.
Well, it's, first of all, we're talking about Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards might lose his job, right? They're under NCAA.
You think so?
They're under NCAA investigation. They have
it's been bad. They have to fire 5 coaches.
Yeah, they have a whole bunch of stuff going on. At this point, the distraction might be a little bit bigger than what we thought when Herm took over the program. It was going to be like, oh, the ESPN guy's over there. But
the funny guy on Countdown.
They lose Rashad White. That's huge. That's massive. But they bring in Xavier Valde from Wyoming. You already mentioned Emory Jones, who I think is a pretty bad college quarterback. I don't think he's good.
He's bad.
The offense averaged 28 points a game last year. They could use a little bit of juice. The defense was really good, but again, the defense is all new faces too. There's so much going on at Arizona State right now. I think that there's we're in the Pac-12 South, and there's a real chance that Arizona State goes south, I guess. I mean, there's not a lot of love on this team. Like, you go through position group by position group, and it's just question mark after question mark. And then when you pull the curtain back a little bit and you look at the program as a whole, it's like, oh, this thing might be in shambles. Like, we got –
You ready for this?
When it happens at LSU, Georgia, Auburn, whenever these guys have recruiting violations, we forget about it because the team wins 11 games. When these guys are under investigation and they win 4, it's a different story.
You ready for this too? Here's a little cherry on top with Arizona State. 126th in returning output out of 132. Tyson, they are returning 12.7 yards on offense. Or percent of their yards. Sorry, 12.7% of their yards are returning. That's 130th out of 132.
Oh, no
Plus
way.
now Emory Jones here, QB. 57 offensive line starts and 50.6% of their tackles are returning. That's 110th in the country, Tyson. This team's not going to be good.
No way. I didn't know it was that bad.
It's that bad.
I mean,
transfers galore. I mean, it's graduation. It's bad here.
Thank God that Colorado exists. If I'm Herm Edwards, I'm thanking my lucky stars every day that Colorado's out here taking all the bullets for us.
Here's another team I think, wow, thank God, Arizona, geez, 1-11 last year in 2021, 1-8 in conference. I mean, this is hilarious. Plus 50,000 to win the conference. Come on. Win total at 2.5. Jed Fish is now in his second season there, and they just got Jaden Delora to transfer in from Washington State, or possibly Will Plummer, who was there last year. I think it's going to be Delora, but obviously he's more talented. Now, we may differ on Arizona a little bit in this one too. I like them this year to be way better than they were last year. I watched, because like the degenerate I am, I had to stay up for a little Pac-12 after dark, but possibly sweating out some different things here and there. But Arizona was definitely a sweat, dude. And do you know how many times they broke my heart, dude, with so like plus like 27, and they're right there, and then it just fall apart in the last 5 minutes. I'm just like,
I mean, you say they could be way better. What's way better than 1-11?
They could win 5 games, in my opinion.
5 games. That'd be
huge.
A lot of. I mean, they pick up Jacob Cowing from UTEP, right? And I think if you watched any UTEP, if you were, like Brad, sweating something out, I think he was.
I loved UTEP last year.
He was a guy that popped off the screen. He was a really good player. You got Colorado coming to town, Arizona State coming to town. Might be able to pick up, 1 or 2 wins in the Pac-12 here. So maybe 5 games isn't crazy. Actually, Arizona had a decent recruiting.
Dude, they had the best they've had in a long time.
Which
second
is pretty,
in the Pac-12.
Pretty amazing, right? And the defense got better by a little bit last year, I guess a lot, but they weren't improving from a very good position. But they took Johnny Nansen away from UCLA to call the plays, which I think will be interesting. But as a whole, they're not going to be 1-11 again. I think Colorado's worse than them. I think Arizona State's probably worse than them. But again, the theme of the Pac-12 is we're not saying much.
UCLA, kind of in that tier. They're above Colorado, ASU, and Arizona, but they're going to be below Utah and USC, which we're going to get into. I think that's appropriate. And I think, a lot of people would say, yeah, we kind of agree with that. Now, last year, Chip Kelly's continued to build upon every single year that he's had at UCLA. Their team's gotten better. Last year went 8-4, 6-3 in conference. This is now his 5th season as head coach at UCLA, plus 1,000 to win the conference, win total at 8.5, juiced over -115, under -105, so not much difference there. QB's back, DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, the running back, he's back as well. Very, very interesting outlook for UCLA coming into this season.
This thing could go one of 2 ways, right? I mean, you look at the roster and you could say they lose Greg Dulcich and Kyle Phillips, but they also bring in Jake Bobo from Duke, who I think is a good player. Last year was their best defense, I think, in like 5 years or 6 years to that point, but tons of turnover on that end too. Luckily, they dipped into the transfer portal a bit. Chip Kelly kind of doing what he does and grabbing guys. But, Brad, they allowed 11 pass plays of over 40 yards a year ago.
So bad. The secondary is a joke.
It's atrocious. And if they were playing in the ACC with all those quarterbacks we talked about last week, that number might have been closer to 25. UCLA is going to be really interesting. I think DTR last year he was one of my sleeper tickets that I held for Heisman. Obviously, that one didn't work out very well. Zach Charbonnet is a monster. Zach Charbonnet is going to play in the NFL. If you want to get ahead of the game, go watch him. I think he'll probably be a day 2 or 3 pick, but I think Zach Charbonnet is going to play in the NFL for a long time. UCLA has a lot of really interesting pieces, but again, like you said, I'm comfortable saying they're better than Colorado and those guys, but I'm not comfortable saying they can push Utah or USC for a berth in the Pac-12 title game.
There's a lot of volatility, I think, that when you look at UCLA and their potential. They have the 75th toughest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. But, they also only returned 6 starters on offense and 2 on defense, which is really bad last year. Now, that could be a good thing because the defense was horrible. But it could also be like, man, what do the backups look like? They did hit the transfer portal hard. They got in some new guys. So maybe that improves that. But 82nd in returning output overall, that's never something when you go into the season with expectations you want to be at. But they do have one of the easiest starts to a college football season and maybe the history of the sport. I mean, they're going to start out 5-0 if they don't. I mean, Chip Kelly might be fired. I mean, it's like that easy. I mean, so they're going to start off hot. They're going to start off good, and then they're going to go into a game with Utah, I believe, in week 6, in the 6th game of the season, where it's going to be like, it's either going to go one of 2 ways. You beat Utah, you're in the driver's seat, or you get steamrolled. And a Chip Kelly team, dude, what we've seen is these things just fall apart.
Every level, right? Every level this guy's on when things aren't going good. And last year was, by the way, his first good year at UCLA.
Well, it's improved, each step. But
It was the first one that you can look back and go, that was a good season.
right.
You look at Chip Kelly and you're like, oh, the Oregon stuff, and he's the Eagles coach and he coached the Niners. Like, the leash has got to be pretty long for him. But I think every day the leash gets shorter. When they don't win games.
So? I don't know,
I
dude. I thought so like 2-3 years ago. But now, this guy's a king there.
But if it goes back down.
Oh, if it goes bad this year, okay.
Then we're in some trouble. Then we're in some trouble because that's how it works. That's the nature of the beast. When you're winning, you're the king of the place. But when you're, by the way, nobody gives a fuck about UCLA football. Chip Kelly's not the king of Los Angeles.
No, he's the king of he's the king. What are they at? Beverly Hills now.
Whatever. LeBron's house is like 3 doors down, dude. He's the king.
You just hate Chip Kelly. That's it.
Yeah, I do. I do hate Chip Kelly. That's fair.
But no, that's a good point though, because remember UCLA is going to the Big Ten. More eyes are going to be on that. So that's a good point. If this thing struggles, they're going to be like, fuck it. Let's start new. Let's get a new coach in there. Hey, Big Ten, come coach us. So no, that's a good point. Okay, let's get into Utah. I think USC was all bells and whistles. Lincoln Riley coming over, Caleb Williams coming over. Look at all these transfers. Look at Lincoln Riley. Utah's like, dude, we just went 10-4 last year. We kicked the shit out of Oregon. We dominated the Pac-12 championship game. Went 10-4, 8-1 in conference. Like we're the dudes here. We're the bullies on the block. Kyle Whittingham, he just kicks your ass. Like that's what he does. He out physicals you. He wants to break your teeth and he wants to break your will. And this football team is reflect that. Cameron Rising, QB, is back. Threw for 2,500 yards last year. 20 touchdowns, 5 incompletions. Also ran interceptions, 6 touchdowns on the ground. So I think he's got a chance. If this team goes undefeated, we talk about Heisman sleepers. You can't really say no to that if they just come out and dominate everybody. This is a really good football team. Plus price at plus 250 to win the conference. Win totals at 8.5, juiced over at minus 160, unders plus 135. That feels disrespectful to me.
Yeah, it does. I love Kyle Whittingham, by the way.
Me too.
That's one of the things that we'll get into it a little bit in money making time, but I think Utah's being just tremendously disrespected here. They lose Devin Lloyd on defense, right? And that's a big deal. Devin Lloyd's a really good player. Diabate from Florida transfers right in, right? We're returning guys like Broughton at corner and RJ Hubert. And the secondary wasn't great last year. That was really the missing piece to that defense a year ago, because one thing we know about Utah is they're going to punch you in the face. And this defense returns 5 starters. They get a couple guys back to full health who we presume to step into starting roles. Like I said, they dip into the transfer portal a little bit. And the offense, by the way, just put up 37 points a game on every other Pac-12 school when they played them. Like, the offense wasn't special, but they just punch you in the face. And the Pac-12, for my money, for the last decade, has been the softest conference in the country as far as the way they play. I know we like to talk about the Big 12 that way, but the Pac-12 is like, it's pretty soft. It's
That's
pretty
some West
soft.
Coast football out there.
And this is the first time in a while that a bully has showed up. And now we're talking about Lincoln Riley going to USC. And, we got Heisman contender at quarterback, at wide receiver. We got all these pieces. We dominated recruiting. Everything's on the up and up for USC. Utah's going to punch him in the face. And I don't think USC is ready to respond.
8 returning offensive starters. That's 76% of their yards are back. That's 29th in the country. 73 O-line swords. 69th in the country. Nice. About midway point. 6 returning defensive starters, but only 50% of their tackles returning. That's 105th in the nation. I'm not worried about that. It's Kyle Whittingham. I think he's going to get them going, baby. It's Kyle Whittingham. I'm not too nervous about that. I'm glad this offense is coming back ready to go. I like that a lot. I like Utah a lot. I'm excited to see them play. I'm excited to see them show up. Now, I think this is the heavyweight title contender for them, USC. We mentioned it. Everybody's mentioned it. Everybody knows. Lincoln Riley's there. Look at his houses that they bought for him and his private jet and all that other shit. Well, he's here. Left Oklahoma. They finally got him out of Norman, and he's in L.A., and he brought over a shit ton of people with him. Caleb Williams, his quarterback, he wanted them there. Jordan Addison transfers from Pitt to USC. Travis Dye transfers from Oregon, the running back, to USC. Offense should be potent. Offense should be ready to rock. Plus 170 conference future. They are the favorite to win the Pac-12. Win total at 9.5, juiced over at minus 120, unders at plus 100. 49th toughest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. Tyson, USC. Let's get into it.
Do you think Alex Grinch can fix this defense in an offseason?
In an offseason, no, but they'll be formidable, I think. Better than they were last year. I'll put it that way.
Well, they were 100. They allowed 167 yards on the ground a year ago, and then they were 11th in the Pac-12 against the pass, and they allowed 13 plays of over 40 yards, 21 sacks. All offseason with USC, it's been the same story. We've been talking about all these Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, and Lincoln Riley, and this scheme is going to be unreal. Utah is going to punch you in the mouth. And if you can't stop the run, you can't win the Pac-12. And I don't think USC is going to be able to stop the run. I don't give a damn how many points they score. Run back through every great college offense. The ones that won at a high level had a top 50 defense, which might not sound like a ton, but USC wasn't even, they weren't cracking top 80 a year ago. I think for them to realistically get where they were 4-8 a year ago, dude. Like, we're talking about these guys like it's Clemson that just added these transfers and stuff after a down year. No, this was a 4-8 football team. Everything is new. And sometimes that can be exciting, and they'll come out and they'll be ready to rock, right? I think is the Notre Dame game week 1?
I think it is. Let me double check while you're going.
Because that's going to be a really interesting week for the Pac-12 if it is, because Utah goes and plays Florida to open the season. USC does have Notre Dame coming into the Coliseum at one point. But
it's the last game of the season.
Okay, the last one. They're going on a road trip to Utah. They're going on a road trip to Oregon State. They're going on a road trip to UCLA, which will be filled with more USC fans anyways. So that's really not a talking point. But there's some games in there where I think we could see USC struggle, and everybody's going to be confused because nobody sat down and watched USC play a year ago. And depending on how you feel about these transfers, it's not quite as cool as what everybody's making it out to be. Like, Jordan Addison's a monster. Caleb Williams is a monster. But, like, Travis Dye,
he's good.
He's good. I mean, dude, like, we're talking about this guy. He's not even top. I wouldn't say Travis Dye right now is a top 10 running back in the country. We're talking about this guy like he's going to run through everybody in the Pac-12. He's not. I don't think he's better than Zach Charbonnet, and that's right down the road.
I agree with that.
USC's got to be able to run the ball. What has stopped Oklahoma all these years from winning a national championship, from winning
pushed around by the trenches,
a big game? And this is Oklahoma West. That's what we've built, and everybody's jacked up beyond belief.
I think it's more so because USC's been so bad.
It's the same
finally,
team,
it seems like it's something, but we'll get into it. Now.
I only have to play a conference championship too. Lincoln never had to play a conference championship.
No, he did the top 2.
I mean, like twice. He got given
they would do the top 2 out of the Big 12. I mean, that's better, I think, than some of the other ones.
No, they were giving him conference championships for like quite a while when he was there.
Okay, right? Because they didn't do the conference championship game like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. To think that this guy that's won a handful of big games, like, we talk about this dude every offseason. He's going to be the next NFL head coach. Where's he going? How's he going to change the culture here? Walked into the best goddamn job in the country. Walks into another really good job, gets a bunch of transfers, and now we're expecting it to be different. That's where I take issue with this, because I just think, like, to expect this to happen right now, I'm not saying Lincoln Riley can't get there, and maybe they win the Pac-12 this year, but, the USC odds to win a national championship and all that good stuff, I am not touching.
Oh, Tyson with some heat. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right, well, that's our Pac-12 preview. Now we still have some more. It's our money-making time. We've alluded to it a little bit, so we're going to go through all, we're going to start with the conference winners who we liked. We're going to go through win total-wise all the way down. So let's just get into it. Money-making time right now. Here we go. Conference championship winner here. Who's going to win the Pac-12? And Tyson, you can direct that anger at me. USC, baby. I'm taking them plus 170. I said it as soon as they started bringing all these guys in. I'm like, I'm on it. I'm taking them. And right now, There hasn't been anything that's going to change my mind. I like Utah a lot. I'll probably, and it's going to be a bitch ass move, but I'm going to be holding the Utah ticket as well. But I can't back down from my preseason pick back in March when they hired this guy that USC is going to win the Pac-12. So God damn it, I'm taking it. Here we go. USC plus 170 to win the Pac-12.
I got to go Utah at plus 250. I just have to. I think that Kyle Whittingham builds teams that are Lincoln Riley's kryptonite. And I think that that's going to be on full display when they play this year in Utah. I think Utah is really good. I think Utah was really good a year ago. I think that when we talk about the Rose Bowl, we talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba putting up 1 billion yards and 1,000 catches, right? Utah lost that game by 3 and realistically probably should have won that game. And if they beat Ohio State a year ago, then this conversation is completely different. And I just don't think that changed my outlook very much. Like, this is the established. You got to show me. You know that.
Hey, I love it. I love it. I'm deferring a little bit from there. I'm straying away from that a little bit. So maybe I'll be shown come back to your light here. All right, let's go through it. Win total wise, Tyson. California. Win totals at 5.5. Juiced plus 100. Under minus 120. I'm going to go as an official pick under 5.5 at minus 120. I think this team's going to be really bad. You know, I'm not into this team at all, and we kind of ran through it. We think it's going to be volatile. I think there's some other teams. You know, if I think other teams like Arizona and Stanford are going to improve, I have to take wins away from others. And Cal won 5 last year. I think they're worse than last year. I'm taking under 5.5. I don't think that's enough juice on the under.
And that's the logic that we're going for here, people, is that this team got worse, other teams got better, and we're looking at the number. That's all this is. I'm probably not going to touch this one officially. I would lean under as well, though. And the market's telling you what they think. If you're at plus 100 over, you know, we got a month before the season. These numbers are going to climb.
Absolutely. So touch it now if you like it. That's the thing. Okay, Oregon. Let's get into Oregon. So you stayed away from Cal. Now Oregon's as win total is 8.5. Are you doing it over minus 130, under plus 105? You doing anything with them?
Over on Oregon.
Over
I just think there's room for these guys to win 9 games. Absolutely, there is. If you look through the schedule, we ran through. You know, we had 6 doormats this time for this conference. A week ago in another bad conference, we had 3 basketball schools or 4 basketball schools or whatever. Look, I ran through it. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be the thing that takes Oregon over the top. But I don't think Bo Nix is going to be worse than what we had a year ago. I don't think the team as a whole is going to be that much worse than we had a year ago. And we get some new juice in the building, right? And I think that can be a beneficial thing because Oregon's going to be able to beat up on 7 of these other schools fairly handily. And so, yeah, over, easy.
I'm taking nothing on here. I'm staying away from this one. I think they're probably going to win, but win total wise, I don't think, I think they can win with 8, as crazy as that sounds. So I'm going to stay away from this one.
They could definitely win the division with 8 wins. I think that's 100%.
So I'm going to stay away. Oregon State, 5.5. Last year they won 7. 5.5 right now, juice over minus 180. Anything you like there, or are you going to stay away from that?
The number's 5.5.
Yep.
They won 7 games, and they returned among the most production coming back in the country. No further elaboration needed. This is an over.
This is an over for Tyson. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, it feels weird, especially with the juice. Like, why didn't you just like move it up to like a 6 or 6.5? But do you want to keep it here? Yeah, I'm with you here. I mean, I'm gonna pick over as well for Oregon State. I'm with you on that. I'm gonna rock on that one as well. Now let's get into one that we differed on, and I think I know where you're gonna go with this. Let's get into Stanford.
Why don't you go? You go ahead.
4.5. You want me to lead this one off?
All the love.
Okay. I'm gonna take a shot on Stanford here, and I think it's the price more than anything at plus 120. I'm going to take a shot at over 4.5 here with Stanford. Now, a lot of it had to do with, kind of what I was saying. I love David Shaw. I know their schedule is difficult, but I love the returning output that they have. Listen, I think this is going to be a bad division in the North. I think there's some bottom tier teams in the South, and maybe they can steal a few of these things, maybe put together 5 wins in a crazy conference this year, and they get 5 and I get plus money on it. I'm going to take a shot on Stanford here.
I'm going under. Because I have to, because we've kind of just decided this is what we're doing. But like, we ran through it. The offensive line is bad. The defense is bad. The weapons are bad. It's a fall from grace for Stanford. But for me, like, if they win 5 games, I will take the L. But we ran through the schedule and we're able to pencil in. You can never pencil in a loss, but sometimes, like, when they're going to go play BYU, on a Thursday or whatever that's going to be, BYU is going to beat them. We just know that. Like, I'm very comfortable in that. Like, I look through the schedule. I was hoping to be right with you, but 5, man,
it's a lot.
They're going to be fighting with Colorado for bottom of the conference. So how many wins do you think that is?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. I think Colorado's going to stink. Washington, you doing anything with them? Win total 7.5, over -125. That's going to have to be a 4-game improvement for them. Are you going to touch this at all?
No. I mean, I would definitely lean under, but this team and UCLA to me are very similar, where it's like, I don't really want to be put through the heart attack that these guys are going to give me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm not doing that either. Washington State, anything for you here? I'm sorry, 5.5 on the win total.
This
plus
one is
125.
This one's interesting because, like, I want to take the under. I really do. But when you run through the conference, it's like, is Washington State worse than this team or this team or this team on their schedule? And so they might be able to pick up a couple where we don't think, when you look at the roster, it's a bad team. It just is. It's a bad team. But there's a lot of bad teams in the Pac-12. And there might just be enough there for them to win 6 games. I don't see it, but I'm not going to touch it.
I'm not touching it either. I'm staying away too. The volatility, I was way more certain on the ACC than this one. I just think there's way more, especially with all the transfer quarterbacks, there's way more variance in where this conference can go. So I'm going to stay away from this one. Now, here's one. I think this is my favorite bet. Arizona. This is my favorite bet of the fucking year. And I'm going to say it like that because 2.5 at -165. Are you kidding me? I love it. I'm going to hammer this thing home. This is my favorite pick in the conference. Arizona's going to win 3 games. I said good season's 5. Hey, this team can win 4 games this year. I'm a Wildcat this year, baby. Let's go.
And I'm riding this with you. We're getting this one. We're going to post it on the IG, on the YouTube, all that good stuff. Arizona is going to win 3 games, dude.
Let's go.
1-11, man. Like, this people are going to look at that, and I mean, -165 is generous. I think at 2.5 wins, anytime you get a number that low, unless the team is atrocious, you're always intrigued. And then B, we ran through Arizona, and there's not a lot to like, but there's a lot more than there was a year ago.
Here's one I'm taking a shot on here. Arizona State, 5.5 is their win total at -155. I'm going opposite. I'm going under 5.5 at +130 here. I mean, just for a lot of the things we laid out, 126 in returning output. Their offense is going to be bad, I think, with the transfers, plus the questions about, NCAA infractions, things like that. I think there's going to be a lot surrounding this team, and they're playing in the Southern Conference. I'm sorry, the Southern Division here, what I think is way more difficult than the North. I think they're going to play a lot harder teams. So I'm gonna take a shot here. I'm gonna go under 5.5.
And again, we're lockstep here, but I'll go one step further. I think Arizona is going to be better than Arizona State this year.
Whoa!
We're going all the way in on the Wildcats, baby. I think Arizona State has a real chance. When we look up, all of a sudden they have 2 wins at the end of the year. Like, I don't think this team is very good, and if we can get the rivalry going, then we got to do it.
You need to do it sometime, man. You need to do it sometime. Actually, 2 NFL guys too. Jed Fish had a cup of coffee with the Patriots. So,
look at
him. Look at him go. Colorado, 3.5. How is it that 3.5 Tyson juiced at plus 145. They think this team's going to win 5 games. Are you touching that? Minus 170 on the under? I think they're going to suck, but are you doing anything?
No, I won't. I mean, we see teams sneak out 4 wins all the time. Right? I mean, USC was horrible last year, and they got 4 wins out of this conference. I think Colorado's probably worse than USC was a year ago. But again, like I just said, when the number's that low, it's really hard to talk yourself into an under.
I know. I can't do it either. I'm staying away from this one.
Riveting betting
it's
section
hard, man, especially at minus 170. At minus 170, that's too much. That's too rich for my blood.
It's almost worth taking the over just in case. Just
in case, honestly. Okay, UCLA, Tyson. You liking anything here? Win total's at 8.5, minus 115, so a little juice on the over. Minus 105, so getting close to even money there. Is there anything you want to do with UCLA?
No shot. Could you see a world where this team wins 5 or 6 games?
They're gonna win. They're gonna go 5-0 to start.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. If they start 5-0, then yeah, we're smashing that number. But first of all, I think you're a little like the start of the conference is really easy there. I'm not high on UCLA. Like if you looked up at the end of the year and this team won 10 games, would you be shocked?
I'd be shocked if they won 10 games.
And that's a game and a half over or over under here. Like,
I know.
Talking best case scenarios, we came up with like 9 wins, and the line said 8.5.
It's at 8.5.
So,
it's not like you're getting anything.
I mean, I think we're both leaning under, but there's no shot. I mean, we got DTR. Maybe that guy comes out wins Heisman this year.
Yeah, but he may also be bad because last year was like best year I've seen him play, and I did not like him before. So. I think I know where you're going to go with this one, but Utah win total 8.5, minus 160, juice to the over. I think I know where you're going to go. Why don't you just make it official?
It's over, and I'm also going to be holding a ticket for Utah to win 10 plus games at plus 170. I think that's kind of a no-brainer for me. I think Utah's going to win the conference, right? We haven't gotten into that part yet, but Utah at plus 300. We did get into it, I guess. I just blacked out with rage. But, yeah, I got Utah. I think 8.5 here. You're telling me Utah and UCLA have the same line? Can't do it. Can't see it. One team's much better than the other, much more accomplished. And we're talking about the returning champs, right? We just gave the ACC, Wake Forest and Pitt. We gave them their flowers. Utah gets theirs too.
This is my second favorite bet. You win 10 games last year, returning everybody, basically. Come on. Smash. Dude, I love this over. I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be awesome. USC. Now, Tyson had a lot of comments, about USC. Let's see if he's going to put his money, where his mouth is. Win total 9.5, juiced over at minus 120, plus 100. Are you going to take anything here?
Wait, so what was the exact odds on the over?
Minus 120.
So they're okay. I was double checking. I thought that FanDuel had a glitch, but they're minus 120 to win 10 plus 2. I was like, if you like that, then get this here. It's the same thing. Look, man, 10 wins won the Pac-12 a year ago. I don't think USC is going to win the Pac-12 this year. And so that's what it boils down to.
So are you taking the under, or are you just kind of sitting this one out?
I'm taking the under. I can't do what I just did and then not at least put a little bit of money on it, right? I understand this one might be a bit controversial here, but again, we're talking about so much new stuff. Everything is new. And sometimes we get really excited about the shiny object, the brand new car sitting right there, when we forget about the fucking beater that's in the garage, and that defense is the beater. And Alex Grinch couldn't fix that in the offseason. There's just no way.
Well, I may be the idiot who likes the shiny new stuff because I'm going to take over 9.5, man. I'm attracted to it. I wasn't the biggest Lincoln Riley guy at Oklahoma, and I hate USC. But, man, if this thing works, this thing gets rolling, especially in this conference, I think they can win some games. And I'm the opposite of you. I can't do what I just did about USC pounding the table for them and not take the over on them. So I have to. Hey, 10 won it last year. I think they're going to win the conference. Might as well throw a little coin here so that if they lose, I'm double sad. Might as well.
USC makes the playoff
This year? Oh, man. They have to go undefeated. They have to go undefeated. I don't think they're going to go undefeated, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. I think that's where a lot of people's minds are at. And I think if USC doesn't make the playoff, people are going to be disappointed, which I think is just ridiculous. It's unfair expectations.
Yeah. Any Heisman you like from here? Any Heisman you throw there? I know you had a lot in the ACC, but
I
that was a lot
did,
of quarterback
but
driven. But
a lot of the ACC bets were huge odds, right? That it was like, hey, put $2 on it. Like there's
right.
Like the past winners come from that section, by the way, of the betting pool. It's never, like the chances that Bryce Young repeats are pretty low, right? But he's sitting there number 2. So I liked a lot of the quarterbacks in the ACC. The problem is quarterback's the only position that really wins Heisman unless you're Devontae Smith and put up just crazy numbers, right?
Or running back.
But you have to be 200 yards a game, Derrick Henry style.
Henry, yeah.
And Zach Charbonnet is not that. I think he's probably the best running back in the conference. All these quarterbacks aren't going to – I mean, if USC goes undefeated, then maybe, right? Maybe we get Williams wins a Heisman. But, like, to me, when you get into – it's a lot of the same things we talk about with the golf bets, right? Take a tier and pick the one that you're most comfortable with winning the Heisman. For me, he's not that guy from kind of that top 2 tiers there. But there's always a chance. I hate the Pac-12, dude. I'm not playing any Heisman tickets. I don't want to watch these guys ball out. Like, it's 1 a.m. I'm tired, dude. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I completely agree with you there. I'm not taking anything on the Heisman Trophy-wise either. So that's going to do it for our Pac-12 conference preview and picks. We'll be tweeting out these picks as well, so make sure to follow us on our social media, Instagram @_the Roundtable Pod, TikTok at the same, and Twitter @TRT_pod. We post a lot more content as we get closer and closer to the football season. Next week, we are back. Big 12, potentially. SEC, potentially. We still have the Big 10 out there. Make sure to follow and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to us. We appreciate you guys following as always. Tyson, anything you have for the folks before we get out of here?
No, man, I'm excited. We did this, we were doing a regional kind of thing with the NFC West, Pac-12, and then the NFC South, ACC. But now we're getting into that part of the country there where we're going to have to break that pattern here a bit. But at least we get into the really fun conferences here. Like, I won't say wide open, but a lot more to discuss kind of than Colorado and Stanford.
Yeah, absolutely. So we appreciate you guys listening as always. New content coming out next week. And as always, guys, until next time, peace.